Imagine sleeping in temperatures so cold your breath freezes instantly. While most of us reach for the thermostat when it drops below 65 degrees Fahrenheit, the Inuit have mastered sleeping at negative 84 degrees Fahrenheit without modern heating. Their first secret, their body. The human body is actually an impressive heat-generating machine. Even at rest, your body produces enough heat to boil about 1.5 gallons of water from freezing to boiling point every day. The Inuit have mastered the art of optimizing this natural furnace through some remarkably effective techniques. At the heart of this survival strategy is their diet. Before bedtime, Inuit traditionally consume foods incredibly rich in fat and calories. A typical pre-sleep meal might include raw seal blubber or fish, which provides the body with slow-burning fuel that generates heat throughout the night. This isn't just a small snack. We're talking about consuming up to 6,000 calories on extremely cold days, with much of it coming from fat. The modern world has us counting calories, while the Inuit count them too, just in the opposite direction. Their approach makes perfect sense when you consider that modern science now confirms the process of digesting food, particularly proteins and fats, creates a thermogenic effect that raises body temperature. What makes this approach particularly effective is the type of fat consumed. Seal blubber and fatty fish contain high levels of omega-3 fatty acids that help the body adapt to cold environments. These fats remain more flexible at low temperatures than other types of fat, allowing blood to continue circulating to extremities even in frigid conditions. The timing matters too. By eating these high-calorie foods about 2 hours before sleep, the Inuit ensure their metabolic rate increases during the most vulnerable time, when the body naturally cools down during sleep. Studies have shown that metabolic rates can increase by up to 30% after consuming certain proteins and fats, creating what amounts to an internal heating system. One particularly fascinating adaptation, Inuit bodies have developed a higher basal metabolic rate than people from warmer climates. Research has found that their resting metabolism can be up to 50% higher than the average person from temperate regions. This means they naturally generate more heat even when doing nothing. It's like having a built-in space heater when everyone else has to plug theirs in. While modern nutritionists might raise eyebrows at a diet so heavy in animal fat, in the context of Arctic survival, it's brilliantly adapted to the environment. Without refrigeration, fresh vegetables are scarce, making meat and fish the most accessible food sources. Nature has a way of aligning necessity with functionality. There's also something surprisingly refreshing about this approach. While the rest of us are fiddling with our smart thermostats and electric blankets, the Inuit remind us that our bodies come equipped with their own temperature regulation systems, if we know how to fuel them properly. Of course, sleeping comfortably at these extreme temperatures involves more than just eating the right foods. You might think snow is just frozen water that makes you cold, but in the Arctic, it's actually a lifesaver. When temperatures drop to negative 84 degrees Fahrenheit, the Inuit don't run from snow. They use it as their shelter and insulation. This might sound crazy at first, but there's solid science behind this survival technique. Snow contains up to 95% trapped air. All these tiny air pockets work like the insulation in your home's walls. The result? An igloo can be 30 to 40 degrees warmer inside than the outside air temperature. That means when it's negative 50 degrees outside, it might be a relatively comfortable negative 10 degrees inside an igloo. Still cold by most standards, but the difference between life and death in the Arctic. Building an igloo isn't just throwing snow into a pile. The Inuit carefully select the right kind of snow, typically wind-packed snow that has the right density and strength. Too fluffy and it won't hold shape, too icy and it won't insulate well. The blocks are cut and stacked in a spiral pattern, creating a dome that's remarkably strong and efficient. The entrance to a traditional igloo always points away from prevailing winds and sits lower than the sleeping platform inside. This clever design traps warm air at the top where people sleep while allowing the heavier cold air to sink to the bottom and out the entrance. It's basically a natural temperature sorting system. What's truly fascinating is how the igloo actually gets warmer over time when occupied. Body heat from the inhabitants gradually melts the inner surface of the snow, which then refreezes into a layer of ice. This ice layer seals in even more heat while still allowing minimal air exchange so the occupants don't suffocate. A well-built snow shelter can support the weight of a person standing on top. Some can hold over 200 pounds per square foot. This strength comes from the dome shape, which distributes weight evenly throughout the structure. Mother Nature was designing efficient architecture long before humans started building skyscrapers. The thickness of igloo walls typically ranges from 4 to 8 inches, depending on the temperature outside. The colder it gets, the thicker the walls need to be. The Inuit have developed such an intuitive understanding of these principles that they can adjust their building techniques based on weather conditions. Snow's insulating properties aren't just useful for igloos. The Inuit sometimes dig simple snow caves or build windbreaks when full igloos aren't necessary. Even a basic snow wall can reduce wind chill dramatically. It's like having access to free building materials that are actually effective against extreme cold. Scientists have measured the thermal conductivity of snow and found it similar to that of fiberglass insulation used in modern homes. Who would have thought that the same white stuff causing school cancellations could actually be keeping people alive in the harshest environment on Earth? Kids might argue snow days should be renamed Insulation Appreciation Days. One of the most remarkable aspects of snow as shelter is its sound dampening quality. Inside an igloo during a howling blizzard, it becomes surprisingly quiet. The same properties that trap heat also block sound waves. This creates a peaceful environment for sleeping in otherwise chaotic conditions. The skills of building proper snow shelters are passed down through generations of Inuit families. Young children start learning by watching and helping with simpler tasks before graduating to cutting blocks and planning structures. By their teenage years, many can build emergency shelters quickly, a skill more valuable than any smartphone app in the Arctic. While our modern homes with central heating are certainly more comfortable, there's an elegance to the igloo that modern architecture can't match, a structure built entirely from the environment that protects against that very same environment. No building permits, no mortgage, just knowledge and skill. That well-insulated igloo creates the perfect environment for the body's natural heating system to do its work efficiently. But our next requires another kind of wisdom. Most of us have this instinct when it's cold. Pile on every piece of clothing we own and burrow under mountains of blankets. For survival in truly Arctic temperatures, this common approach can actually be dangerous. The Inuit discovered long ago that when it comes to layers, more isn't always better. Here's the surprising truth. Wearing too many layers can make you colder. How? It's all about sweat. When the human body overheats, even in freezing temperatures, it produces sweat to cool down. In a negative 84-degree environment, that moisture becomes your worst enemy. Once sweat forms, it quickly chills and pulls heat away from your body much faster than dry air would. It's like jumping in a pool on a winter day, a recipe for hypothermia. The ideal layering system follows what modern outdoor enthusiasts call the 3-layer principle, though the Inuit mastered it centuries before it had a name. The system consists of a base layer that wicks moisture away from skin, a middle insulating layer that traps heat, and an outer windproof layer that blocks the elements. A crucial difference between Inuit layering and what most people do, they leave room for air between each layer. These air pockets get warmed by body heat and create additional insulation. Tight clothing restricts circulation and eliminates these warming air spaces. It's like how a properly insulated house has air gaps in the walls. They're not a mistake. They're a feature. Temperature regulation becomes particularly important during sleep. The body's core temperature naturally drops by about 2 degrees Fahrenheit during sleep cycles. Inuit carefully adjust their sleeping layers to account for this change, often loosening certain clothing items before bed to prevent overheating and sweating. The traditional sleeping arrangement includes a layer of boughs or dried grasses beneath the sleeper, followed by animal hides. Modern tests have proven this system creates effective insulation from the ground, which can steal body heat 6 times faster than air. Just enough, not too much, is the governing principle. A common mistake among Arctic travelers has been wearing every available piece of clothing, only to wake up hours later shivering in sweat-dampened garments. Rescue records from early Arctic expeditions show that many explorers died not from insufficient clothing, but from improper layering that led to sweating, followed by rapid cooling. Inuit children learn the concept of proper layering early, often through trial and error under supervised conditions. They discover that feeling slightly cool when first going to bed is actually better than feeling warm. Because once the body settles in and the layers trap heat, the temperature equalizes perfectly for sleeping. Most modern sleeping bags are designed as closed systems that trap body heat, but they often fail to address moisture management. The traditional Inuit approach of separate, adjustable layers allows for venting excess heat and moisture while maintaining core warmth. The concept extends to hand and foot coverings too. Multiple thin mittens with air spaces work better than one thick pair. A fascinating statistic: thin air gaps of just 1/8 of an inch between layers can improve insulation value by up to 40% compared to compressed materials of the same total thickness. Everyone's seen those people who bundle up like they're preparing for a blizzard just to check their mail. The Inuit would find this approach hilarious. Their layering wisdom shows that sometimes less truly is more when it comes to staying warm in the coldest places on Earth. While the number and arrangement of layers create the foundation for Arctic sleep comfort, the quality of the materials themselves takes this survival strategy to an entirely new level. Have you ever spent hundreds of dollars on a high-tech sleeping bag? The Inuit have been using something better for thousands of years: caribou hide. This isn't just any animal skin, it's practically a miracle material for Arctic survival. What makes caribou hide so special starts with its structure. Each hollow hair follicle contains trapped air that provides exceptional insulation. When examined under a microscope, caribou hair reveals thousands of tiny air chambers that work like natural thermos bottles. These microscopic pockets trap body heat with remarkable efficiency, a natural technology that modern manufacturers still struggle to replicate. Tests conducted on traditional caribou hide clothing show it provides nearly twice the insulation value per inch compared to modern synthetic materials. A caribou hide sleeping cover weighing 4 pounds offers the same warmth as a modern synthetic sleeping bag weighing 7 pounds. When every ounce matters in survival situations, this efficiency becomes crucial. The natural oils in caribou hide also repel moisture while allowing the material to breathe. This combination prevents the deadly cycle of sweating and freezing that claims many lives in extreme cold. Unlike cotton, which loses 90% of its insulating properties when wet, caribou hide maintains much of its warmth even in damp conditions. Inuit hunters traditionally harvest caribou in late fall when the animals have grown their thick winter coats. The timing is critical. Too early and the hide lacks sufficient insulation. Too late and the animals migrate to less accessible areas. The hides are then processed using techniques refined over countless generations. The preparation involves scraping, stretching, and careful smoking to preserve the hide without damaging its insulating properties. Modern tanning methods often strip away the natural oils that contribute to the hide's exceptional performance. The traditional Inuit approach preserves these essential elements. One caribou can provide enough material for a complete sleep system. The hide is typically used with the fur facing inward against the body, allowing direct contact with the insulating hairs. This orientation maximizes heat retention while allowing moisture to move away from the skin. An interesting feature of caribou hide is how it responds to body temperature. The microscopic structure of the hair fibers actually expands slightly when warmed, creating an even tighter insulation barrier as body heat builds up. It's like a sleeping bag that automatically adjusts to temperature conditions. Modern outdoor gear companies have spent millions trying to replicate what caribou evolved naturally. The closest they've come is with specialized synthetic fills that mimic the hollow fiber structure. But even these fall short of the real thing in extreme conditions. The durability of caribou hide stands out too. While a synthetic sleeping bag might last 5 to 10 years with regular use, properly maintained caribou hide sleep coverings can last decades. Some Inuit families pass down particularly well-made pieces through multiple generations. Beyond warmth, caribou hide offers another benefit modern materials can't match. It's silent. Anyone who's tried to sleep in a nylon sleeping bag knows the crinkly noise that comes with every movement. In a hunting culture where sound discipline can mean the difference between eating and going hungry, the silent comfort of natural materials matters. Those fancy space-age fabrics in outdoor stores might look impressive, but Mother Nature perfected sleep technology long before we started putting logos on our jackets. Maybe we should call it caribou tech instead. The wisdom of proper materials is just one piece of the Arctic sleep puzzle. Do you sleep sprawled out like a starfish on a summer night? That might work fine in your heated bedroom, but it could be deadly in Arctic conditions. The Inuit have refined sleeping positions that maximize warmth retention, and they're quite different from how most of us naturally sleep. The most effective position for conserving body heat is the fetal position, where you curl up with your knees pulled towards your chest. This pose minimizes the surface area exposed to the cold air, reducing heat loss by up to 30% compared to sleeping stretched out. When temperatures drop below negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit, this difference can be life-saving. Studies of body heat loss show why this works so well. The human body loses heat through radiation, conduction, convection, and evaporation. By curling up, you reduce the amount of skin surface available for radiative heat loss, the same principle that makes a compact sphere lose heat more slowly than a stretched-out shape with the same volume. The fetal position also protects vital organs. When the body experiences extreme cold, it naturally diverts blood flow away from extremities to maintain core temperature, a survival mechanism known as vasoconstriction. By tucking limbs close to the torso, you're supporting this natural response, keeping warm blood circulating near essential organs. Inuit sleepers often tuck their hands between their thighs or into their armpits, the body's natural hot pockets. These areas contain major blood vessels close to the surface and generate significant heat. Keeping hands tucked away also protects fingers, which are particularly vulnerable to frostbite due to their high surface-to-volume ratio. Another key technique involves keeping the face partially covered. The human face contains a network of blood vessels that can lose heat rapidly. Tucking the chin down toward the chest creates a small pocket of warmed air for breathing while protecting facial skin from direct exposure to cold air. This method also warms the air slightly before it enters the lungs, reducing the body's heating workload. The back is generally avoided as a primary sleeping surface in extreme cold. When lying flat on your back, the spine makes contact with the sleeping surface along its entire length, increasing conductive heat loss. Side sleeping reduces this contact area significantly. If modern mattress companies advertise based on Arctic survival principles rather than comfort, they'd be promoting very different designs. Position shifting is minimized as well. Each time you move during sleep, you break the warm air seal that's formed around your body and temporarily allow cold air to rush in. The ideal is to find one comfortable, heat-conserving position and maintain it through the night. Modern sleep tracking shows the average person changes position 15 to 20 times per night, a luxury not afforded in survival situations. Feet positioning matters too. Crossing ankles and keeping feet stacked rather than spread apart reduces the surface area exposed to cold. Some Inuit sleepers also tuck their feet into the opposite knee pit, creating a closed loop that minimizes exposed extremities. Group sleeping arrangements add another dimension to position strategy. When multiple people sleep close together, they typically arrange themselves in a spooning formation with everyone facing the same direction. This configuration maximizes the shared warmth while minimizing the total exposed surface area of the group. It's geometry applied to survival. Those fancy sleeping position recommendations in health magazines focus on preventing back pain or reducing snoring, concerns that seem pretty trivial when the alternative is freezing solid. The Inuit sleep positions might not make it into wellness blogs, but they've kept people alive in conditions that would be fatal to the unprepared. The perfect sleeping position is just one part of a comprehensive approach to Arctic rest. When temperatures drop to their lowest, sometimes the best strategy is to share not just techniques. Sleeping in groups isn't just a social arrangement, it's a calculated survival strategy that significantly improves everyone's chances of making it through the night. The math behind group sleeping is compelling. A single person generates roughly the same heat as a 100-watt light bulb. Put 3 people together, and you've got the equivalent of a small space heater working all night long. The average human body produces about 300 BTUs of heat per hour while sleeping. Multiply that by a family group, and you've created a remarkably efficient heating system powered by nothing more than normal metabolic processes. Inuit sleeping arrangements typically involve the entire family group sharing a communal sleeping area. Everyone benefits from the collective heat. This approach mirrors what many Arctic animals do instinctively. Emperor penguins, for example, survive Antarctic winters by huddling in tight groups, rotating positions so each member gets a turn in the warmer center. Temperature measurements taken inside traditional sleeping areas show that a group of 4 to 6 people can raise the ambient temperature by 8 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit compared to a solo sleeper in the same space. This difference can transform a dangerous situation into a survivable one. The arrangement of bodies follows specific patterns designed to maximize heat sharing. Typically, the youngest children sleep between adults where they benefit from heat on multiple sides. Elders, who often generate less body heat, are positioned where they can benefit from the warmth of others. The most cold-resistant individuals might take the outer positions, providing a buffer for more vulnerable family members. Beyond just generating heat, group sleeping reduces each person's exposed surface area. When 2 people sleep back-to-back, each loses less heat through radiation and convection because one entire side of their body is protected. Scientists have calculated that 2 people sleeping in contact can reduce their combined heat loss by 25% compared to sleeping separately. The communal approach offers psychological benefits too. Arctic nights can last for months, and the darkness combined with extreme cold creates challenging conditions for mental health. The reassurance of physical proximity to others provides comfort that goes beyond mere temperature regulation. Cultural practices around group sleeping develop specific etiquette to make the arrangement work smoothly. Movement is coordinated. If one person needs to turn, others shift accordingly to maintain the heat envelope. Even breathing patterns sometimes synchronize naturally among group sleepers, creating efficient cycles of shared warmth. Modern Arctic explorers have adopted this traditional wisdom, abandoning individual tents in the most extreme conditions in favor of shared sleeping arrangements. Many survival stories include accounts of people huddling together through dangerous cold snaps, using nothing but collective body heat to stay alive. You might say the Arctic is the one place where getting too close to your in-laws could actually save your life. Nothing builds family bonds quite like knowing Uncle Joe's snoring is actually contributing to the household heating system. The practice extends to working dogs as well. Traditional sled dogs sleep in tight circular formations, with different dogs taking turns at the exposed outer positions. The Inuit observed and replicated these natural strategies, recognizing that if it works for animals evolved specifically for Arctic conditions, it would work for humans too. For those not raised in this tradition, group sleeping can initially feel uncomfortable or invasive of personal space. Western visitors to traditional Arctic communities often struggle to adapt to this survival technique, their cultural preference for privacy competing with the practical reality of survival needs. Those who embrace the approach quickly recognize its effectiveness. Modern thermal imaging dramatically illustrates the benefits of shared body heat. Images of solo sleepers show heat radiating away into the environment, while group sleepers create a merged heat signature that retains warmth efficiently within the human cluster. It's a visible representation of how cooperation becomes not just helpful, but essential for survival. While proper sleeping positions and protective materials create the foundation for Arctic sleep, the multiplication of body heat through proximity transforms the cold from an enemy into a manageable condition. No central heating bill, no electricity needed, just the original human furnace working at full capacity. Next comes the strategic protection of those parts most vulnerable to the biting cold. Your fingers, toes, ears, and nose are the first casualties in the battle against extreme cold. These body parts sit farthest from your heart and get less blood flow than your core. When temperatures drop to negative 84 degrees Fahrenheit, protecting these vulnerable extremities becomes a top priority for the Inuit. The human body operates with a ruthless survival logic. When faced with life-threatening colds, it restricts blood flow to extremities to keep the core organs functioning. This biological triage means your fingers and toes start to freeze while your body desperately tries to keep your heart and brain warm. The Inuit have developed specific techniques to counteract this natural but potentially dangerous response. Let's start with the hands. Traditional Inuit mittens, called pulik, are designed with a crucial difference from standard winter gear. They're significantly oversized. This extra space creates an insulating air pocket around the hand, which the body warms naturally. Tests show that properly designed mittens with this airspace can be up to 40% warmer than tight-fitting gloves of the same material. The mittens typically feature a two-layer system. The inner layer is often caribou fur with the hair facing inward, while the outer layer is sealskin with the waterproof side facing out. This combination manages moisture from sweat while blocking wind and wetness from outside, a sophisticated system developed centuries before modern synthetic materials. Foot protection follows similar principles, but with added complexity. The kamik, traditional Inuit boot, features multiple removable layers. The critical innovation is the inner layer made of dried grass that can be replaced daily. This grass absorbs moisture from the feet during the day and is switched out each evening, ensuring dry foot protection for sleep. Anyone who's ever gone hiking knows that wet socks eventually mean cold feet, no matter how expensive your boots are. The Inuit solved this moisture problem through clever material choices and daily maintenance long before moisture-wicking fabrics were invented. You might have a sock drawer, but the Inuit have a grass meadow for their footwear needs. Head protection receives special attention because up to 45% of body heat can be lost through an uncovered head. Traditional hoods feature a ruff, typically wolf or wolverine fur, that creates a microclimate around the face. The ruff breaks the wind while allowing breath to escape without forming ice on facial skin. Wolf fur has the unique quality of not collecting frost from breath moisture, making it ideal for this purpose. Before sleeping, many Inuit perform a specific routine focusing on extremity warming. They might massage hands and feet vigorously to stimulate blood flow before entering their sleeping arrangement. Some traditional practices include warming specific pressure points, areas where major blood vessels run close to the skin, to improve circulation to the extremities. One particularly effective technique involves gradually warming cold hands or feet rather than applying direct heat. Placing cold extremities against the stomach or underarms allows them to warm slowly, preventing the painful rewarming injury that occurs when severely cold skin is heated too quickly. Modern medicine has confirmed the wisdom of this approach, now teaching the same gradual rewarming techniques for treating early frostbite. For nighttime sleeping comfort, the Inuit often create specialized mittens and footwear used only for sleeping. These tend to be looser than day wear, allowing better circulation while maintaining insulation. Some designs include pouches that can hold pre-warmed materials like heated stones or moss, providing additional heat through the night. Statistics highlight the importance of these methods. At negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit, exposed skin can develop frostbite in just 10 minutes. By negative 60 degrees, that time drops to less than 5 minutes. The difference between proper and improper extremity protection isn't just comfort. It can mean keeping or losing fingers, toes, ears, or worse. With extremities safely wrapped and warmed, let's talk about the next challenge. Take a deep breath of air at negative 84 degrees Fahrenheit, and you'll quickly learn why breathing technique matters in the Arctic. The Inuit have developed specific breathing methods that protect their lungs and prevent moisture from freezing around their face, issues that can become life-threatening in extreme cold. When you exhale in such frigid conditions, the moisture in your breath freezes almost instantly. Without proper technique, this creates several problems. First, the water vapor can freeze around your mouth, nose, and face, potentially leading to frostbite on delicate facial tissue. Second, it can freeze in your facial hair or on the edge of your hood, creating ice that then sits against your skin. The basic Inuit breathing technique involves partially covering the mouth, often with a thin piece of fur or fabric. This creates a small microclimate where exhaled air warms the incoming air before it reaches the lungs. Studies show this simple method can warm incoming air by up to 15 degrees, significant protection for delicate lung tissue. Breathing rhythm changes in extreme cold as well. The Inuit typically adopt a slower, more controlled breathing pattern with deeper breaths. This reduces the number of cold air intakes and allows more efficient warming of the air. The average person takes 12 to 20 breaths per minute, but experienced Arctic dwellers might reduce this to 8 to 10 when exposed to extreme cold. Another critical aspect is breathing primarily through the nose rather than the mouth. The human nose is designed to warm and humidify air before it reaches the lungs. The nasal passages contain specialized tissue with an extensive blood supply that can warm air efficiently. Mouth breathing bypasses this natural warming system, sending shockingly cold air directly to the lungs. The lungs themselves can be damaged by extremely cold air. When air at negative 64 degrees hits lung tissue, it can cause bronchospasm, a tightening of the airways that reduces breathing capacity. In severe cases, this can lead to a condition similar to frostbite inside the lungs. Proper breathing technique prevents this by ensuring air is pre-warmed before reaching deep into the respiratory system. Some traditional Inuit sleep shelters include a breathing hole positioned near the sleeper's face. This creates a small tunnel through which air can be drawn while minimizing exposure to the full cold of the environment. The walls of this tunnel gradually warm the air as it passes through, a natural heat exchanger that functions on simple principles. Moisture management extends beyond just breathing technique. Many Inuit pull a fur hood or cover completely over their head while sleeping, breathing into this enclosed space. While this might sound counterintuitive, wouldn't it get damp? The natural materials actually absorb and distribute the moisture in ways synthetic fabrics cannot. The fur remains warm even when slightly damp, unlike cotton or other materials that become dangerously cold when wet. One fascinating adaptation involves synchronizing breathing with activity levels. During periods of high exertion, the body generates more heat, making cold air less dangerous to the lungs. But when settling down to sleep, breathing must adjust as body temperature drops. The transition between active and rest breathing requires careful management to prevent respiratory issues. The consequences of improper breathing technique can be severe. Ice buildup around the face not only increases frostbite risk, but can actually freeze eyelids shut or create an ice mask that must be painfully thawed. In the Arctic, morning breath takes on a whole new meaning. It's less about bad smell and more about whether your breath turns your face into an ice sculpture overnight. Modern cold weather masks and face coverings attempt to replicate these traditional techniques using synthetic materials with heat exchange properties. But many Arctic travelers find these modern solutions inferior to the traditional approaches refined over thousands of years of practical experience. As technology advances, the fundamental principles of Arctic survival remain unchanged. Modern visitors to extreme northern regions still learn traditional breathing methods because no technological solution has yet surpassed the efficiency of these time-tested techniques. Mastering proper breathing allows Arctic sleepers to rest comfortably without worrying about the air they breathe. But another source of warmth plays a crucial role in the coldest conditions. How do you heat a house made of snow without melting it? This seemingly impossible challenge has been solved by the Inuit with an ingenious heating system, the quollic, or seal oil lamp. This simple but effective device provides both light and heat in Arctic dwellings while maintaining a delicate balance that keeps the structure intact. The traditional seal oil lamp consists of a shallow, carved stone vessel filled with rendered seal blubber. A wick made from Arctic cotton grass or moss runs along one edge. When lit, the wick draws up the oil and burns with a steady, controlled flame. It sounds basic, but the engineering is surprisingly sophisticated. A properly maintained quollic generates between 100 and 400 BTUs of heat per hour, enough to raise the interior temperature of an igloo by 15 to 20 degrees without causing structural damage. The heat output can be precisely controlled by adjusting the length of the exposed wick or the number of wicks burning simultaneously. The strategic placement of the lamp is crucial. Typically positioned on a snow platform or stone base, the quollic heats the air above it, which then circulates throughout the shelter. The warming effect creates a gentle convection current that distributes heat evenly while avoiding direct contact between the flame and the snow walls. Fuel efficiency makes these lamps particularly valuable in the resource-scarce Arctic. 1 pound of seal oil can provide up to 16 hours of continuous heat and light. The Inuit carefully collect and store seal blubber during hunting seasons, rendering it into oil that remains liquid even at extremely low temperatures. Talk about renewable energy. These lamps were sustainable long before it became trendy. The quollic does more than just provide warmth. It creates a zone for cooking, drying wet clothing, and melting snow for drinking water. This multifunctional approach to heating maximizes the utility of each calorie of heat produced. In modern terms, it's like having your heating system also serve as your stove, clothes dryer, and water purifier. Temperature control inside the shelter requires skilled management of the lamp. If the flame burns too high, the inside surface of the snow walls begins to melt. Rather than causing collapse, however, this actually strengthens the structure when managed properly. The melted inner layer refreezes into a solid ice shell that increases structural integrity while improving insulation. It's a bit like having your igloo refresh its own insulation system, as long as the melting doesn't go too far. The smoke from a well-maintained kulik is minimal, but what little is produced contains particles that help waterproof clothing hung above it. The microscopic oil droplets in the smoke gradually coat fabric, adding a water-resistant layer that helps gear stay dry. This unexpected benefit demonstrates the Inuits' holistic approach to survival technology. For sleeping specifically, the lamp is often adjusted to a lower setting, providing just enough heat to maintain comfort without wasting precious fuel while everyone sleeps. The gentle, flickering light also creates a psychological comfort in the otherwise pitch-black Arctic night, which can last for months during winter. Modern testing of traditional kulik designs has revealed impressive efficiency ratings. The radiant heat transfer is remarkably effective in small spaces, with tests showing that up to 70% of the energy in the fuel is converted to usable heat. That's comparable to many modern heating systems achieved with technology developed thousands of years ago. The subtle art of wick maintenance becomes crucial for nighttime comfort. Too short a wick produces insufficient heat. Too long creates excess smoke and wastes fuel. Experienced lamp keepers can adjust the wick by feel even in near darkness, maintaining optimal heating throughout the night. Some particularly skilled individuals can even adjust the lamp in their sleep, responding to temperature changes without fully waking. Health researchers have noted that traditional seal oil lamps produce fewer harmful emissions than many other pre-industrial heating methods. The clean-burning oil produces mainly carbon dioxide and water vapor, with minimal soot or carbon monoxide when properly maintained, making it surprisingly health-friendly for an ancient technology. With both breathing techniques and heat source optimized for Arctic conditions, you need to know this next step. Because the difference between sleeping comfortably and freezing can be just a few feet of elevation inside an igloo, the Inuit have mastered the science of sleeping spot selection through centuries of Arctic survival experience. The first rule of igloo sleeping spots: height matters. Cold air sinks and warm air rises, a simple principle of physics that becomes a matter of survival at negative 64 degrees. Inside a traditional igloo, temperature measurements show a remarkable 15 to 20 degree difference between floor level and the higher sleeping platforms. That's why Inuit sleeping areas are always built on raised snow benches. These sleeping platforms are typically built 2 to 3 feet above the igloo floor. The elevation is no accident. It's precisely calculated to place sleepers in the warmest air layer while maintaining headroom below the dome's center. The sleeping platform usually occupies about half of the interior space, with the lower section reserved for cooking, storage, and daytime activities. The sleeping platform isn't just higher, it's also carefully shaped. The surface is slightly concave, creating a shallow depression that helps contain body heat in the immediate sleeping area. The edges are often raised slightly to prevent sleepers from rolling off during the night. These subtle design elements demonstrate the detailed engineering knowledge developed through generations of Arctic living. Distance from the entrance matters too. The coldest spot in any igloo is near the door, where outside air can infiltrate. Traditional designs feature a sunken entrance tunnel that traps cold air before it can rise into the main living space, a natural cold air trap. The sleeping platform is positioned as far from this entrance as possible, usually on the opposite side of the dwelling. Proximity to the qualic, the seal oil lamp, influences sleeping spot selection as well. The platform is usually arranged so sleepers benefit from the lamp's radiant heat without being directly above the flame. This creates a comfortable temperature gradient that keeps the sleeping area pleasantly warm without overheating. In multi-person igloos, sleeping spot assignment follows a practical hierarchy. Children and elders often get the warmest spots, usually the center of the platform and slightly higher sections. Healthy adults might take slightly cooler positions, using their greater cold tolerance to shield more vulnerable family members. Modern temperature logging inside traditional igloos has revealed just how effective these sleeping platforms are. While outside temperatures might plunge to negative 50-80 degrees Fahrenheit, the sleeping platform can maintain temperatures around negative 5 to negative 10. Still cold by most standards, but survivable with proper sleep gear and techniques. The igloo's interior develops its own microclimate zones over time. As warm air from breathing and body heat rises and slightly melts the inner surface of the dome, it creates an insulating layer of still air. The sleeping platform height is designed to position sleepers in this optimal thermal layer, not too low in the cold zone, not too high where excessive moisture might accumulate. The smallest details matter in platform design. The edge closest to the center of the igloo is often slightly higher than the outside edge, creating a subtle slope that helps contain the warmest air in the sleeping area. It's like having a custom-designed heat trap built into your bed. Even the most perfectly positioned sleeping platform works better with the right underbedding. Before setting down sleeping furs, the Inuit typically place a layer of insulating material, often willow branches or dried grass, directly on the snow platform. This creates airspace beneath the sleeper, reducing heat loss to the snow surface below. While modern houses waste energy heating entire rooms evenly, the Inuit focus on creating targeted warming zones exactly where needed. It's like having a smart home temperature system designed by people who couldn't afford to waste a single BTU of heat. With the perfect sleeping platform established, many Inuit add another layer of protection from their companion. The loyal sled dogs that power transportation across the Arctic serve another crucial purpose when the temperatures plunge to their lowest extremes. They become living heaters and sources of incredible insulation. The relationship between the Inuit and their dogs extends far beyond work partnerships into a critical survival bond. Dog fur possesses remarkable insulating properties that make it particularly valuable in Arctic conditions. Each hair contains tiny air pockets that trap heat extraordinarily well, while the outer coat naturally repels moisture. This combination creates an insulation material that remains effective even in damp conditions. Tests have shown that dog fur can retain up to 80% of its insulating value when wet, far superior to most natural fibers. During the coldest nights, Inuit families often invite their sled dogs into their sleeping quarters. The animal's body heat, a dog's normal temperature runs around 101 to 102 degrees Fahrenheit, provides significant warming. A medium-sized dog generates roughly the same heat as a 300 BTU heater, making a team of dogs the equivalent of a modern home heating system. The dogs typically curl up at the foot end of the sleeping platform, creating a living foot warmer that maintains circulation to the extremities throughout the night. This practice benefits both humans and dogs. The humans gain warmth while the dogs receive shelter from the harshest conditions. Beyond using the living animals for warmth, dog fur is collected during seasonal shedding and crafted into supplemental blankets and sleep covers. The soft undercoat fur is particularly prized for this purpose. These blankets are lightweight, yet provide exceptional warmth, with the natural oils in the fur creating water-resistant properties that synthetic materials struggle to match. While sleeping with dogs might seem like a last resort to modern sensibilities, in the Arctic it represents a sophisticated symbiotic relationship that has evolved over thousands of years. The most expensive down comforter from a luxury department store still can't compete with the adaptive heating properties of a few good sled dogs on a minus 60-degree night. While dog fur provides excellent insulation, there is another critical challenge in Arctic survival. In the Arctic, moisture is deadlier than cold itself. When temperatures drop to negative 84 degrees Fahrenheit, any dampness in clothing or bedding quickly freezes, drawing critical heat away from the body. The Inuit approach this threat with almost obsessive attention to moisture management. Sweat is the primary enemy during sleep. Even small amounts of perspiration can reduce the insulating value of fur and clothing by up to 50%. Before bed, Inuit sleepers carefully remove any damp layers and hang them to dry, often near the quillik, where gentle heat removes moisture without causing damage to natural materials. Snow that might be brought in on clothing or gear is meticulously brushed off before entering the sleeping area. Any snow that accidentally makes its way inside is immediately removed rather than allowed to melt into fabric. Modern outdoor enthusiasts have a saying, "You can brush off snow, but you have to live with water," a principle the Inuit have followed for centuries. Breathing adds moisture to sleeping environments too. The average person exhales about 1 cup of water vapor during 8 hours of sleep, enough to dampen bedding if not properly managed. Traditional face coverings direct this moisture away from sleeping furs, and the careful positioning of the body prevents breath from condensing on critical insulation layers. Even eating the wrong foods can increase moisture problems. The Inuit avoid consuming foods that cause excessive sweating before sleep, another example of how their survival approach integrates every aspect of daily life into a comprehensive system. Those fancy moisture-wicking fabrics outdoor companies sell for hundreds of dollars. The Inuit developed better moisture management techniques with natural materials thousands of years ago and never had to worry about the fabric pilling after a few washes. When all else fails against moisture, the Inuit turn to heat, not just for warmth, but as a tool for drying. Long before electric blankets existed, the Inuit mastered a simple yet effective technology for targeted warmth: heated stones. This ancient bed warming method has kept people comfortable through countless Arctic nights. The technique begins with selecting the right stones, typically smooth, dense rocks that can hold heat for extended periods. These rocks are heated near the Quolak until they reach the ideal temperature, hot enough to radiate warmth for hours, but not so hot they might burn sleeping furs or skin. Once properly heated, the stones are wrapped in small pieces of hide or fur to prevent direct contact with the sleeper. They're then strategically placed near the feet, lower back, or other areas that tend to get coldest during the night. The stones release their stored heat gradually, creating hours of comfort. What makes this method particularly valuable is its targeted approach. Rather than trying to heat an entire sleeping area, the stones provide focused warmth exactly where needed. A properly heated stone can maintain useful warmth for 4 to 6 hours, often enough to get through the coldest part of the night. The stones serve multiple functions beyond just warming. They can be used to dry damp items by placing wet materials near them. They can pre-warm sleeping furs before bedtime, eliminating the uncomfortable initial chill that can disrupt sleep onset. Some stones are even shaped to fit specific body contours, creating customized heating elements. While today's campers might use fancy chemical heat packs that work once and become landfill waste, the Inuit stone heater can be reused indefinitely, the original sustainable warming technology. They're like prehistoric hot water bottles that never spring a leak, though admittedly, they're a bit harder to squeeze into those cozy bed socks. The physical comfort provided by these simple tools contributes to another critical aspect of Arctic survival. The brutal cold of an Arctic night tests more than just your body. It challenges your mind. The Inuit have developed psychological techniques that prevent panic and help maintain calm during extreme temperature exposure. One key mental strategy involves focusing on rhythmic breathing rather than dwelling on the cold. This meditation-like approach shifts attention away from discomfort and regulates the body's stress response. Studies show that controlled breathing can lower cortisol levels by up to 20%, reducing the perception of cold. Traditional Inuit mental training includes visualizing warmth spreading through specific body parts, a practice remarkably similar to modern guided meditation techniques. Children learn these mental skills alongside physical survival techniques, treating mind and body as equally important for cold survival. Panic is particularly dangerous in extreme cold because it increases respiration and heart rate, potentially leading to hyperventilation in frigid air. The Inuit approach emphasizes maintaining emotional equilibrium. A calm mind conserves body heat and makes better survival decisions. There's also a strong cultural component to this mental resilience. Stories and songs about ancestors surviving extreme conditions are shared before sleep, creating both distraction from discomfort and confidence in survival. In a way, the Inuit mastered mind over matter long before self-help books were selling the same idea for $19.99. This mental fortitude works hand in hand with a little adjustment. Can the human body actually change to handle extreme cold better? The Inuit provide living proof that it can. Generations of life in the Arctic have led to biological adaptations that help them sleep comfortably in temperatures that would be dangerous for most people. Research shows that Inuit bodies typically maintain a core temperature about 1 degree Fahrenheit higher than people from warmer climates. Their metabolic rates run approximately 20% faster, generating more internal heat. Blood vessels in their extremities respond differently to cold, constricting less severely and allowing more warm blood to reach fingers and toes. These adaptations develop both genetically over generations and individually through gradual cold exposure. Even within one lifetime, the body can become significantly more cold tolerant through consistent exposure. The process triggers increased production of brown fat, a special tissue that burns calories specifically to generate heat rather than to store energy. The Inuit sleeping practices combine this biological adaptation with all the techniques we've discussed, creating a comprehensive system that transforms the seemingly impossible challenge of sleeping at negative 64 degrees into a manageable reality that has sustained life in one of Earth's most extreme environments for thousands of years. Now that's what you call the ultimate sleep hack. No expensive mattress required.